Fast and fearless. Here's everything you need to know this rush hour of July 3, Wednesday. I'm Riza Diaz. We kick off today's rush with President Duterte, who, after threatening impeachment backers with jail time, is now asking a favor from the military and the national police. His plea: do not stage a coup d'etat. Greg Gregorio has the report.
Known for his tough talk and off-script foul-mouthed statements, it's no question why President Duterte has been dubbed a strong man by Time magazine. But in a speech during the 72nd anniversary of the Philippine Air Force in Pasay, Duterte had a request to the members of the armed forces and the national police. He asked government's uniformed personnel not to stage a coup d'etat during his term.
Do not do it, please, during my term.
According to Duterte, he wants no violence resulting from attempts to oust him. In fact, he says the military and the police could just call him and he would be willing to step down. This comes a week after Duterte threatened to jail those planning to file impeachment cases against him.
Told you before, all you have to do, kung ayaw din niyo ako, do not bring your weapons and mechanisms, irons there. Just call me and we'll have coffee, and I'm ready to say, it's yours.
The president went on to assure the AFP that they will have the administration's full support throughout.
I assure you that this administration will continue to pursue all efforts to enhance your capabilities against these threats through modernization and capacity building initiatives such as the military pilot training and your conduct of our qualified student officers, thereby assuring a strong future for our Air Force.
Duterte says the PNP can expect the same. Earlier this week, PNP Chief Oscar Albayalde says they are ready to arrest impeachment backers if they are found to violating other laws.
And during my time, I have never said no to any of the commanders and to Delfin Lorenzana at kay Secretary Esperon, all the things that they wanted for our armed forces, pati ang police.
President Duterte has been known to appoint retired military personnel to several government posts. Just last month, he named retired Army General Ricardo Morales new PhilHealth chief after also giving him a post at the MWSS. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, We Are One News.
The West Philippine Sea, the Philippine rice, and the Malampaya gas fields are ours. That's what President Duterte said during the 72nd founding anniversary of the Philippine Air Force on Tuesday. This comes after the chief executive said the Chinese can fish in the West Philippine Sea despite it being part of our exclusive economic zone. Meanwhile, the Philippine rice, also known as the Benham rice, was awarded to the Philippines by the United Nations in 2012 as an extension of the Luzon's continental shelf. Malampaya is a gas field off the coast of Palawan, which provides about 40% of Luzon's energy needs. The Commander-in-Chief thanked the Air Force for its patrol missions in the contested waters and reiterated our country's claim to these areas.
I acknowledge your unwavering commitment to the sworn duty to protect our territorial and maritime patrol missions in the West Philippine Sea. And of course, which is really ours, the Philippine rice. Malampaya natural gas plant off the coast of Palawan.
The Supreme Court resumes its discussion on the writ of Kalikasan for the West Philippine Sea, but Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio is keeping his hands off the case. Dale De Vera has the story.
The West Philippine Sea is an issue close to Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio's heart. But he said, as a man of delicadeza, he has chosen to voluntarily inhibit himself from a case compelling the government to protect the contested waters. Supreme Court spokesman Brian Hosaka says Carpio cited only one reason.
The reason why he is inhibiting himself voluntarily is because it is for the peace of mind of the parties, particularly the Solgen.
Solicitor General Jose Calida sought for Carpio's inhibition for his supposed personal bias over his active participation in the country's arbitration case, as well as his pronouncements against the government's inaction on the arbitral award. Without Carpio, the oral arguments began with the petitioners. Justice Andres Reyes asserted that the petition is politically motivated and meant to embarrass the country. Reyes said the petition presupposes that the Philippines is like the United States, where the government can attend to every problem. Reyes then asked if placing soldiers in maritime features not considered an enforcement of laws. The petitioners agreed but insist that the government also has the responsibility to prosecute.
So it's not an easy thing to enforce. So that's why I just feel sad that you're asking for enforcement, and I just feel sad that our country, though it wants to enforce our laws, we don't have enough money. You know, we cannot even pay our soldiers, our policemen properly. And here we are demanding that we enforce something in the high seas, and you don't even peg the value of how much are stolen from our fishes. How much is stolen every day from so do you know? I don't know, Your Honor.
At this point, the justices questioned the petition's failure to include names of those allegedly responsible for the destruction of marine resources in the West Philippine Sea. Justice Estela Perlas Bernabe questioned how they can be prosecuted if they are not impeded in the case. The justices also hit their failure to attach judicial affidavits from the fishermen, a requirement needed for a writ of Kalikasan. But the petitioners anchor their case on the submissions made by the government under the Aquino administration to the arbitral tribunal. Justice Alfred Benjamin Caguiwa told the petitioners that he doesn't get their petition to go after vessels that supposedly committed crimes in 2012 to 2014. But for Justice Ramon Hernando, if based on the petition, officials of the past administration who have done nothing should also be held liable, including Justice Caguiwa, who served as Justice Secretary under former President Aquino. The prosecution, however, said,
the reason why we believe that the present respondents should take action is because the tribunal's decision is already out. There's nothing anymore there to cause an issue for, and we think that they should continue with the enforcement of our laws.
Before today's session ended, Justice Marvic Leonen asked the petitioner if this case is an attempt to make China comply with the arbitral award, to which lawyer Chal Jokno indirectly answered in the affirmative. The respondents are set to take the podium on the second oral arguments on July 9. For News 5, Dale Tavera, we are One News.
Now, over at the lower house, presidential son Paulo Duterte is now considering to run for House Speaker. This comes as a surprise to his father, who renewed his threats to resign if the younger Duterte joins the speakership race. Royce Snagit tells us more.
Presidential son and Davao City Congressman Paulo Duterte has been downplaying the possibility of him joining the speakership race. He said he has no interest in the post. But on Tuesday, Congressman Duterte had an apparent change of heart. In a statement, the younger Duterte said he is now considering to run for House Speaker so that he can unite the House of Representatives, in line with the idea of term sharing pushed by Taguig Congressman Alan Peter Cayetano. Pulong is also proposing that the Speaker of the House post should be shared by representatives from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao blocks, as well as the party list coalition. While PDP Laban has already declared support for Marinduque Congressman Lord Alan Velasco, PDP Laban Executive Vice President and Pampanga Representative Don Gonzales said if Pulong Duterte decides to run for Speaker, the race might as well be considered over.
We have no objection na lahat pag siya ang pumasok sa speakership. Palagay ko wala nang lalaban dyan. At lahat kami, all the coalition partners, sasama dyan. we are for Congressman Pulong Duterte.
Albay Congressman Joey Salceda shares the same view with Gonzales, saying later Congressman Martin Romualdez would surely not contest Congressman Duterte. Salceda said term sharing will no longer be needed as the presidential son could easily get the support of 300 lawmakers in the lower chamber. But his father, President Rodrigo Duterte, he said, still has the final say on the issue. President Duterte has threatened to resign from his post if his son joins the speakership race.
If he insists on running, maniwala siya sa mga advisor niya, go ahead. Let me know 3 days in advance before you make the announcement and I will tender my resignation.
Senator Bongo is confident that the president will stay true to his word, having known him for 21 years.
Kung ano pong binitawan na salita ni Pangulong Duterte, ay tutuparin niya po yun.
Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said that just like his son, the president can always change his mind on resigning.
You make a stand on the basis of circumstances. When those circumstances change, you also change your stand. So pwede rin magbago.
So pwede rin magbago yung isip ng Pangulo?
Pwede rin magbago ang isip ng Presidente. Pwede rin magbago ang isip si Congressman Paulo Duterte. So, tingnan natin. Let it evolve.
For News 5 versus Nagit, we are One News.
Hugpong ng pagbabago has sided with the president in his call to prevent Pulong Duterte from running for House Speaker. In a statement, HNP said it understands the current plight of the president and believes that out of delicadeza, Paulo should not be House Speaker. Instead, the alliance is endorsing Davao City 3rd District Representative Isidro Ungab. Hugpong explained that Ungab is the right choice since he has been a lawmaker for 4 terms already and has held the chairmanship of both Ways and the Means and Appropriations Committees. Ex-Senator Gringo Honasan is set to lead government's youngest department, the DICT. But amid all the doubts of whether he is fit for the post, the palace itself is backing the 71-year-old official. Bim Santos has the story.
A day after being sworn in by President Duterte, the country's second secretary of the Department of ICT reported for duty at his office. Gringo Honasan, the 71-year-old former senator, soldier, and rebel, will serve as the new secretary of the youngest agency in the cabinet. Former acting Secretary Eliseo Rio will slide down as Undersecretary for Operations. Honasan says Rio will be in charge of technical aspects of the DICT's programs.
So you have now 2 lolos to help you manage the newest department, the Department of Information and Communications Technology. So let's help each other.
But a constitutional provision barring lawmakers from being appointed to a government agency created during their term prevented him from taking over the post. Honasan, however, says the restriction expired following the end of his term as senator last week. Honasan also defended his experience, saying he has spent decades in the public service. This comes as Republic Act 10844, or the law creating DICT, states that DICT officials, from assistant secretary to secretary, should have a minimum of 7 years experience in the ICT field.
I was not placed here to become a lineman. I'm being put here as a manager. I have been a soldier for 17 years, a rebel for 7 years, and a senator for 21 years. Now, if that is not enough qualification, then the appointing authority is free to choose another person.
Rio also defended the competence of Honasan, who is his baptismal godbrother and who was once his student at the Philippine Military Academy.
My weakness really is management. No, since my professional career, I've always been concentrated on technical matters.
He has AIM degree for that. AIM graduate ito ng management. Yung mga expert dyan, you can get them as consultants.
On his views on the telco sector, Honasan said he will just ensure a level playing field for all players. He also downplayed security concerns raised against Chinese company Huawei.
It is not good business to mix politics with global security. Diba? They are earning 100 billion a year. Why would they start hacking everybody.
Honasan's first program to attend as DICT Secretary was the launch of free Wi-Fi access at the state-run Quirino Memorial Medical Center. After previously being ribbed for having a Jurassic phone, the new DICT Secretary showed that he also now sports his own smartphone. Bim Santos, We Are One News.
Meanwhile, here are the biggest stories from the dailies. Filipino Star ngayon reports that one of the suicide bombers responsible for the attack in Indanan, Sulu over the weekend is a Filipino. The AFP Western Mindanao Command says it identified the bomber as 23-year-old Norman Lasuca, who hails from Jolo, Sulu. The other bomber was reportedly a 14-year-old boy who was the son of Moroccan terrorist link to the previous bombing attacks in Basilan. This one from the business world. Professionals are now exempted from paying fees to obtain business permits for the operation of their offices or clinics. Under a new circular from the Department of Finance, local government units may still impose local business tax on professionals who conduct trading and other business activities that are outside the scope of their professions. Vapers and e-cigarette smokers, beware. The Health Department has now banned the use of e-cigarettes and vapes in public, following the earlier ban on smoking cigarettes and other tobacco products. The ban on these devices will follow the same guidelines for the designated smoking areas under Section 4 of the Executive Order 26 or 26. The DOH tells the Philippine Star that the ban will take effect after publication in 2 newspapers. The Trade Department says there's no shortage of fish and meat products in the market, but prices of these basic goods are starting to rise. Shaila Francisco tells us why.
Anna has learned to manage her budget when buying fish at Mega Q Mart. This comes after she noticed an increase in the prices of fish and other goods in the past month.
Hindi babawasan yung binibili. Gano'n na lang para ma-accommodate lahat yung gustong bilhin.
Rosie, meanwhile, says she struggles every time the price of basic goods increase.
Mahirap talaga mag-budget kasi maraming bibilin tapos yung pera, kaunti.
Compared to the previous month, prices of fish and other seafood are 10 to 80 pesos higher. The Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources says fishermen usually have fewer catch during the rainy season. But aside from fish, pork and chicken prices are still high. The price of pork now ranges from 200 to 240 pesos, while chicken is now 10 to 20 pesos more expensive. The Trade Department explains the high prices of chicken is a result of an increase in farm gate prices.
Kasi parang bumabalanse ang production nila at medyo umaayos yung cost of production ng farmers natin on poultry. So umadjust yung presyo nila.
Still, the agency notes the increase should only be up to 160 pesos per kilo. It also said pork should only be priced at a maximum of 220 pesos because the supply is stable. The DTI adds retailers cannot use African swine fever as an excuse as the government banned the importation in affected countries. The DTI is now looking into the matter.
Continuous as assistance natin sa Department of Agriculture. Anytime soon, lalabas tayo para tayo mismo ang makakita dun sa mga presyo sa retail na sa palengke.
Meanwhile, the agency has approved price hikes on milk, coffee, and fish sauce, which is aimed to be implemented by end July or August. Shaila Francisco, We Are One News.
Resident shoppers in the Visoria laud the clearing operations done in the area, which made room for easier access and less traffic. Vendors, though, are used to the same routine. The city government of Manila, under the new leadership of Mayor Isko Moreno Domagoso, conducted clearing operations in the streets of Recto Avenue, prompting street vendors to immediately leave their posts. With the clearing order, streets up until Carriedo are now passable. But for the small-time vendors in the area, it has always been a practice to drive out the street sellers during the start of every new city administration's term. They say they have no choice but to follow orders and hope that eventually they would get a permanent spot to continue selling. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us again next time for another round of Rush. I'm Riza Diaz. We are One News.